You think 1970s cheap cooking was just boxed mac and mystery meat. Nah, these 10 forgotten budget dinners were pure survival genius, quietly feeding whole families when money got tight. Number 1. Meatloaf with Ketchup Glaze. Meatloaf with Ketchup Glaze was the ultimate 1970s stretch-the-meat masterpiece. When hamburger was the only protein that didn't bankrupt you, moms turned 1 pound into a whole weeknight miracle. They'd mix ground beef with breadcrumbs or oats, an egg, chopped onion, whatever was on hand, and press it into a loaf like it was building a brick of security. Then came the real magic, that shiny ketchup glaze. Sweet, tangy, and sticky, it caramelized in the oven and did most of the flavor heavy lifting. Slice it open, and you'd see those little onion flecks like confetti in a beefcake. And the next day, cold meatloaf sandwiches on white bread with extra ketchup, because the 70s didn't waste anything. Number 2. Hobo Stew. Hobo Stew was what happened when the pantry was almost empty, but dinner still had to happen. This was true dump and stir survival cooking, revived straight out of Depression-era logic and reborn in the 1970s recession. Ground beef, potatoes, carrots, onions, canned corn, canned green beans. If it existed, it went into the pot. No recipe, no measurements, no rules. Everything simmered together in one massive pot, filling the house with that vague but comforting smell that told kids dinner was coming, even if no one knew exactly what it was yet. The stew came out thick, reddish-brown, and chunky, with soft vegetables and little nuggets of beef scattered like hidden prizes. Every bowl tasted slightly different, but it was hot, filling, and cheap. And that's all that mattered when money was tight. Number 3. Tuna Noodle Casserole. Tuna Noodle Casserole was the quiet hero of 1970s weeknight dinners, the meal you made when payday was still days away. 1 can of tuna somehow became dinner for 4 thanks to egg noodles and a can of cream of mushroom soup doing the heavy lifting. The noodles boiled while the tuna got flaked into a bowl, mixed with that thick gray soup straight from the can, frozen peas, and maybe a little chopped celery if you were feeling ambitious. Everything went into a casserole dish, topped with crushed potato chips or breadcrumbs, then baked until the top turned golden and crunchy. The kitchen filled with that unmistakable smell of baked fish and processed comfort. Creamy, salty, and filling, it wasn't glamorous, but it worked. And in the 1970s, working was the whole point. Number 4. Hamburger Stew. Hamburger stew was what families made when pot roast became a distant fantasy. You started with cheap ground beef, browned with onions in a deep pot, then stretched it to its absolute limit. Potatoes, carrots, celery, whatever vegetables were lingering in the fridge, went straight in. A can of tomato soup added body, a spoon of beef bouillon added depth, and water turned it all into something that looked generous. It simmered until the vegetables softened and the broth turned rich and beefy, even though there was barely half a pound of meat in the entire pot. Each bowl came out thick, steaming, and deeply comforting. It wasn't fancy, but it filled stomachs, warmed hands, and proved that a little meat could go a very long way. Number 5. Classic chili and cornbread. Classic chili and cornbread was the ultimate 1970s answer to rising meat prices. 1 pound of ground beef could feed an entire family if you patted it with enough beans and patience. The chili simmered for hours. Cheap beef, canned tomatoes, kidney beans, chili powder, cumin, and whatever vegetables needed using up. It bubbled slowly, filling the house with a smoky, peppery smell that promised warmth even before dinner was served. On the side came cornbread from a Jiffy mix box. Just add an egg and milk, baked until golden with crispy edges. Together, they made the perfect survival meal. Protein, carbs, fiber, and flavor strong enough to make you forget it was poverty food. And the leftovers? Somehow even better the next day. Number 6. Beef Stroganoff. 1970s. Beef stroganoff was elegance on a budget, American style. Instead of pricey steak, families used cheap stew meat or even ground beef, browned with onions and mushrooms, often canned because fresh cost extra. The sauce came together from a can of cream of mushroom soup and a scoop of sour cream, turning everything into a smooth beige blanket of comfort. It all got spooned over egg noodles, instantly making dinner feel fancy enough to serve guests. The flavor was creamy, tangy, and unmistakably processed in the most comforting way possible. Stroganoff let home cooks pretend, just for one night, that they weren't pinching pennies, even though the whole meal cost only a few dollars and fed everyone twice. Number 7. Liver and onions. Liver and onions were the dinner kids feared, and parents defended with one simple argument: it's good for you. In the 1970s, beef liver cost almost nothing and packed more iron than anything else at the butcher counter. Thin, dark slices of liver were dredged in flour and quickly fried in butter with piles of sliced onions. The onions caramelized and softened, adding sweetness to cut the intensity of the meat. The liver itself was tender but grainy, with a strong, metallic flavor you couldn't hide or escape. Adults who grew up poor often loved it because it meant real meat on the table. Kids, meanwhile, learned valuable lessons about chewing fast and swallowing without question. Number 8. Stuffed bell peppers. Stuffed bell peppers were 1970s budget cooking dressed up to look impressive. 1 pound of ground beef could feed an entire family when it was mixed with cooked rice, tomato sauce, onions, and seasonings, then packed into hollowed-out green peppers. The peppers lined up in a baking dish like little dinner soldiers, steaming as they baked until the walls softened and collapsed slightly. When they came out of the oven, they looked fancy, almost restaurant-worthy, even though the recipe was pure economy. Each pepper was its own complete meal, meat, grain, and vegetable all in one. You cut into the tender pepper skin and released that hot tomato-scented filling, proving that even tight-budget dinners could still feel special. Number 9. Porcupine Meatballs. Porcupine Meatballs were a clever little trick disguised as a fun name. Ground beef was mixed with uncooked rice, eggs, and seasonings, then rolled into meatballs that looked ordinary, until they started cooking. As they simmered in tomato sauce, the rice absorbed liquid, swelled, and poked out like tiny quills, giving the dish its memorable look. That rice wasn't just for show. It stretched expensive meat and doubled as the starch for the meal. The sauce thickened into a rich tomatoey gravy, perfect for spooning over each meatball. Easy filling and made in one pot, porcupine meatballs were proof that 1970s home cooks could turn necessity into something kids actually looked forward to eating. Number 10. Tuna Twist Casserole. Tuna Twist Casserole was the final boss of 1970s budget dinners. It took the classic tuna noodle casserole and gave it just enough flair to feel new. Canned tuna was mixed with spiral pasta, cream of mushroom soup, frozen peas, and diced pimentos for little pops of color that made the dish look almost fancy. The real star was the topping, crushed potato chips baked until golden and crunchy. It came out of the oven creamy underneath, crispy on top, and deeply satisfying in every bite. Families loved it because it was cheap, filling, and endlessly customizable. Kids loved it because of the crunch. And everyone loved it because it fed 6 people for just a few dollars. These forgotten 1970s dinners weren't fancy, but they kept families fed when times were tough. If this brought back memories, hit like, subscribe, and stick around, because food history tastes better when we remember where it came from.